Nirmal Prabhu, you're on mute. In case you're talking.
Yeah, no, I was just calling Amarendra Prabhu. He was calling me saying he couldn't get in. So
Okay. Oh, that's okay. I hope he can. There's still 100 people, Prabhu, so somebody will have to log out, I guess, right, for him to get in.
I don't know how come
I
we ended
didn't
up
know
with
there are so many people. There are people lined up for our event. That's amazing.
yeah. We should
Yeah,
charge.
Nilmani Prabhu, I'm logging off, Yeah, you can call him.
I did call him just now. As soon as you log in, it's back to 100.
Wow, the people lined up. I think the tickets are being sold for black.
Let's
I think he's in.
in.
I see his name there.
Okay, good.
Maybe we can.
Yeah, there he is.
Haribol Prabhu, thanks for joining.
You're on mute, Amarendra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, for joining. We didn't expect this many people to be in attendance, so it's a little embarrassing where we lock out our speaker. So, but you're here now, and without much ado, I think we can just continue. We just we've had a very, very entertaining evening so far with Yadunath Prabhu kicking it off, and then Sri Gadadhar Prabhu doing some wonderful skits and games and things like that. So everyone's warmed up for.
I'm gonna be the salt in the whole preparation. The addition of excessive salt. The preparation is so sweet till now, but I'm gonna be the unnecessary. I'm really sorry. I think I may not be able to keep up to the level of enthusiasm and entertainment and so much joy and pomp that is being carried out, but I think I'm going to be the black sheep. So please forgive me for somehow being here.
No. People are here because of you, Prabhu. So thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight, and we look eagerly forward to hearing from you. And
Sure. How much time do I have, and what is the program? Because I don't want to topple any schedule.
We're going to give you the rest of the year. How's that?
That's really nice and funny. Thank you. So maybe I'll go half the year. I'll go for like an hour if that's okay.
Okay.
Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakraya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saha Gana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saha Gana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namaum Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namne Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatharane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So thank you everyone for kindly participating and kindly welcoming me here and giving me a place in this assembly. My my prostrated obeisances to His Grace Neelamani Prabhu, His Grace Madan Gopal Prabhu, and all the senior Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis on the call. I may not be able to know who's on the call and who's not, but please accept a personal obeisances from my side at your lotus feet. All the wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, please kindly offer me your best wishes. May your prayers and blessings protect me so that the right words come at the right time, in the right mood of glorification of Sri Hari, and may this purify us in this process. To all the kids who are participating in today's program, thank you for kindly participating. I promise you I won't keep it very boring. I'll try to spin a few stories that will be nice for the topic. So we have a very interesting topic for our discussion today. We are all here celebrating the New Year's Eve. I know we have all had a very tough 2020, starting from the bushfires in Australia in the start of the year, starting with the lockdown in March, and the lockdown starting, the preparation of the lockdown starting in February, and almost 3 huge peaks of waves of the coronavirus pandemic hit in North America, whether it's in March, whether it's in August, and now in October. So still things are uncertain what's happening. Absolutely, after February, the whole year has been a source of great struggle, distress, and havoc in all of our lives. There have been people who have lost their jobs. There have been people who have lost their lives. Financial planning has been toppled and whatnot. So the world has seen the greatest hit, whether it's finance, whether it's emotions, whether it's family relations, so much happening. Who would have imagined that we would all be tethered to one corner of the room or the house for as much as 10 months without being able to go out? And that too, when we go out, we have to maintain social distancing and we have to mask ourselves. We never even thought of a life like that. So it's been very, very testing, to the whole world, I would say, not just in America, in India, and all over the world. It's been the main. If the whole year has to be remembered for something, it has to be for the coronavirus, a pandemic which has hit us, and something that was not even conceived of, imagined. I believe once in a lifetime, something like this is witnessed. The last pandemic was exactly 100 years ago, and before that, 100 years before that. So once in every 100 years, we see, such an unfortunate situation. But still, we are now at the brink, at the doorstep of the beginning of the new year, and we're wishing each other Happy New Year. But the question to ask ourselves would be how happy the year would be. Would it be the continuation of the same corona pandemic situation? Or would it be a new page that will be turned on the book of our life? You're thinking, oh, he's starting off with a very philosophical discussion. Well, that's just the introduction. The discussion is not going to be philosophical because the title of today's talk is Happy New Year. How do we find happiness in the new year that we are about to approach? Let's assume that the lockdown is done and the vaccine is working and everything is back to normal. Then we're going to be happy, no doubt. But let's assume even if that doesn't happen, we are living through a situation where there's uncertainty and we are obscurity. Let's say the whole next year is also lost in uncertainty. So how can we still find happiness? That is the topic of today's discussion, not from a philosophical perspective, but from a very sweet, instructive Gaudiya Vaishnava perspective. The references of today's talk will be the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, which is the English translation of Srila Prabhupada to the Bengali text, Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami's Ujjvala Neelamani, and also a very wonderful work of Rasik Uttamsa Goswami, a Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharya, who wrote a very wonderful text talking about contradictions in Vrindavan Dham. So on the basis of these texts, we're going to speak about the nature of bhakti, the nature of love, how love for Krishna makes even situations which are saddening, which are disappointing, which are filled with distress. They can all be completely transformed into great sources of joy. Even if the situation externally is very depressing, or let's say pain-inducing, still the consciousness of the living being who has love for Krishna will perceive the situation to be a source of great joy. So by this discussion, we can welcome the new year in the sense that only if we can develop more and more transcendental love for Krishna, then whether or not the coronavirus, the pandemic whether the page flips or not, still we will be able to see Krishna's hand behind everything. So let us dive into today's discussion and find for ourselves what is awaited. Our acharyas describe very specifically the Chaitanya Charitamrita we find in Madhya Leela chapter 23. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaks to Sanatana Goswami and he mentions the nature of love. Samyam asrinita swanto mamatvatishayankitah bhavasa eva sandratma budhai premani gadhyate. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains to Srila Sanatana Goswami in the 23rd chapter of the Madhya Leela Chaitanya Charitamrita that when the heart completely softens and condenses and gets drenched and saturated with divine ecstatic love, then what happens? This state is called Prema Bhakti. And at such a state, the scholars describe the nature of this transcendental love is that it is counterintuitive. When I say counterintuitive, it means what we imagine and what the reality is, they will be just exact opposites. When prem rises in the heart, when there's love for Krishna in the heart, then everything which is upside down, everything that's up becomes down, and everything that's down becomes up. So that which is downside becomes upside, and that which is upside becomes downside. So everything is moved and flipped the other way, which means even if there are reversals, even if there are sources of great distress, they're all seen as sources of great joy. Let us dive into the first example to illustrate this point from Srila Rupa Goswami's Ujjwal Nilamani. The title of this example is The Soft Stones Under the Cooling Sun. That's right, the soft stones under the cooling sun. So the sun is generally scorching and the stones are generally sharp, but the title of the first example to illustrate this point is The Soft Stones Under the Cooling Sun. Nayak Naika Dui Raser Alamban Se Dui Sreshtha Radha Brajendra Nandan. The Chaitanya Charitamrita describes for this love, this pure devotional, transcendental, ecstatic love or prem to exist, there must be two sides. And one is called Radha and the other is called Brajendra Nandan Krishna. Nayaka Naika Dui Raser Alamban Se Dui Sreshtha Radha Brajendra Nandan. So in the first example, we find the scene is set that Srimati Radharani is at Govardhan. She is at the beautiful, wonderful foothill of Sri Giriraj Govardhan, the king of all mountains. And Srimati Radhika there is searching for her Brajendra Nandan Shama Sundar Sri Krishna. Because from a distance, she heard the flute playing. And she couldn't see Krishna. She just heard the flute playing. It is described that Krishna's flute playing is a great thief because it enters through the ear and enters the heart and steals the treasure of Krishna Prem and runs away. Just like we see, there are thieves who are not invited.
Main screen पर अपने zoom आतो मैं
Is there some concern? I see some mics are unmute.
बंद कर दे वहाँ
Zoom पे जब बनता है
screen आया stop है ना
Nandana Acharya Prabhu, Just mute them.
સ્ક્રીન નો એપ્સ આવે ને.
Zoom off.
I can't do that.
I can't do that. But you can change the setting. Setting માં જાઓ.
વિડીયો.
Zoom video.
I think we're good now, Prabhu. Go ahead.
Okay. I was not sure, but just in case if there's any concern, feel free to just unmute the mic and let me know, because I like a madman will continue speaking. So do let me know. Okay. So we were talking about Srimati Radharani, and Srimati Radharani is at Govardhan, hearing the beautiful, wonderful flute sound of Krishna, but she can't see Krishna. She's just hearing the flute sound, and it is described that the flute sound of Krishna is like a thief. Why the flute of Krishna is compared to a thief? Because the thief is never welcomed home. He's never invited, but he comes anyway. And what does he do? He waits for the doorkeeper or the chokidar, the watchman, to get off the scene so that the thief can come and plunder the house. And he enters the house, and then he gets into the bedroom, and from the closet he takes the most precious jewel and runs away. And as soon as we realize, we had to chase the thief and run behind him to get the jewel. So that's the flute sound of Krishna. Even if the gopis do this, because they know if they hear the flute sound of Krishna, they will get attracted. So they try to stop the flute sound from entering the ear. But then still the flute sound, like a thief, plunders through the ear door, enters the house of the body, and enters the bedroom of the heart, and through the closet takes the jewel of prem and runs away. And by then it's too late. So now the gopis have to run behind the thief, and then they reach Vamshivat to see the beautiful threefold bending form of Sri Krishna. And Krishna says, well, I did not call you. And the gopis say, oh, this is the thief. Here's the thief. So therefore Srimati Radharani one day, of course this was not the night time, this was the daytime. This example is given. Srimati Radharani heard the flute sound of Krishna, but she couldn't see Krishna. So she came to the foothill of Govardhan, and she still couldn't find him. So what did she do? She climbed up the slope of Giriraj Govardhan and came to an altitude from where she could see Krishna. She wanted to see Krishna. Then finally she saw Shama Sundar playing the flute very beautifully. How attractive, the threefold bending form. Smera bhangi traya parichita sachi vistirna drishti vamshi nyasta adara kishalayam ujjwalam chandrakena govindakyam haritanumiha keshi tirthopa kanthe ma prekshishthasthavayadhi sakhe bandhu sange stirangaha. Rupa Goswami says, oh, dear friend, if you want to be happy in this world, listen to me. Take my advice seriously. Don't go and glance at Krishna. He who has a very beautiful smile, and he who's bending in threefold parts of his body. He has three folds on his knees and on his waist, and at the same time, not knees, but ankles, waist, and his neck. He's beautifully standing with his threefold, and he has held the flute to his soft bud-like lips. And all of this under the full moon night of Sharat Purnima on the banks of the Jamuna, under the Kadamba tree. So Rupa Goswami says, if you go and see him, then all your desire to be happy in this world, to cut jokes in this world, will all be taken away. And oh, dear friend, I want you to be happy in this world. I want you to be cutting jokes with your friends. I want you to gossip in this world. Therefore, please don't go and glance at Krishna. Well, that's satire. That's Vakra Ukti. That's the opposite. Viparita Vakya. It is like saying that don't read Srimad Bhagavatam, because if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, your material life will be finished. Which means go run, read Srimad Bhagavatam. Go run, glance at Krishna. So Srimati Radharani, after climbing up the slope of Giriraj Govardhan, at a certain altitude, she saw Krishna face to face. So now her ears were drinking the flute sound of Shama Sundar, and the pots of her eyes were drinking the nectar streaming from the lotus face of Sri Hari. Interestingly, the day was pretty challenging because it was a hot summer afternoon. And the description given is, it was the summer season, the Vrusha Rashi, which means the sun was scorching at its best. And that too, This was the afternoon time. So it's hot, hot, hot. It's completely hot. And Radharani is standing there on top of Giriraj Govardhan, glancing at Krishna and hearing his flute sound, completely stunned. At that point, Lalita Sakhi, she glances at Radharani and she can keep the relish to herself. The nature of happiness is that when the heart overfloods, it will come through the mouth. So preaching, His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu explains, preaching is distributing the overflow, which means when you have a cup of water and you keep filling it with water, it fills up to the brim. And then when you pour a little more, oops, it falls off. it jumps off. That water spills off. So similarly, when the heart is filled with joy and relish and happiness, what happens is it comes through the mouth, and that is preaching. So when Prabhupada says preaching is the essence, which means not simply dry preaching, it means fill your heart with so much joy in Krishna consciousness, Janma Sarthaka Kari, that automatically it spills from our mouth, and Karapara Upakar. That becomes the essence of preaching. So Lalita Sakhi, when she saw Radharani, her heart was filled with relish, and she wanted some gopi to share this with. So she catches hold of a gopi and she says, look at Srimati Radharani on the slope of Govardhan. And what's astonishing is that Govardhan is filled with Surya Kanta Mani. Surya Kanta Mani is the specific type of stone, which is very effulgent, and it's like a diamond. But the problem with diamond is its ends are very sharp. So the rocks of Govardhan are all compared to millions and millions of transcendental diamonds put together. And therefore, they are very sharp. So Lalita Sakhi is telling the Sakhi, look at Radharani's frame. Under her lotus feet are very sharp Suryakanta Mani, very sharp edges of this touchstone. And above her head is this scorching, hot summer afternoon sun. Under her lotus feet are sharp sword-like mani, and above her head is the scorching sun. But none of that is affecting Srimati Radhika. Why? Because she's climbing on top of them so joyfully, completely oblivious, not feeling any pain, because she is tasting the higher joy, gazing at Shyamasundar, the son of Nanda Maharaj, the beautiful king of the cowherds, the flute player of Vrindavan. And Radharani is motionless. Motionless. It's not that she is as if asleep. You know, sometimes when we are asleep, we are also motionless. But she's not like as if we are sleeping. She is like a painted picture. What's the difference between someone who's asleep and someone who's in a painted picture? Well, one fundamental difference, one fundamental similarity, both don't move. But one fundamental difference, the one who's asleep is breathing. The one who's there as a painted picture is so stunned that he's not even breathing. This is samadhi. So Lalita Sakhi tells the Sakhi, look at Radharani. She is motionless, not as if someone who's asleep, but she's standing like a painted picture because she has even forgotten to breathe. What is there above her head seems to be soothing, like millions and billions of moonbeam showers. And under her lotus feet, the sharp Suryakanta Mani seem to be like a bed of blue lotus flowers. These are the words of Lalita Sakhi. Now we understand why it's happening to Radharani. Why is she not feeling any pain under her feet and above her head? Well, someone will say that when we are sleeping, the mosquitoes come and bite us, right? When we're asleep, and we see sometimes the mosquitoes come and bite, and we don't notice. But when we wake up, we feel the itching, and we see some blood coming from the pore. So can we say that the joy of seeing Krishna in the heart of Radharani, it's such that it's like sleeping. So she's feeling the pain, but she's not experiencing it. So when the vision of Krishna will be lost, all that pain will come. Is it so? Just like we are asleep and the mosquito is biting us, we don't feel it. But as soon as we wake up, we feel it. So is it so that the joy of seeing Krishna is so intoxicating that she doesn't feel any pain? But as soon as Krishna will leave, all that pain will come back to her lotus feet. Is that so? The answer is no. The answer is no, because Srimati Radharani is not like a sleeping person. By seeing Krishna, her whole body, head to toe, has become more soothing and colder than millions and billions of moons put together. It has become so cold. It has become so soft. It has become so soothing that she doesn't feel any pain. Also, when you throw a piece of cotton, and you take a piece of cotton and you throw it onto the rock, what happens to the cotton? Nothing. When you take a pot and you throw it at the rock, then the pot breaks, the pot cracks because it's very hard. So you take a pot and you throw it on sharp rocks, it breaks because the pot is very hard. But when you take a swab of cotton or a piece, a lump of cotton, and you throw it on the sharp rocks, what happens to the cotton? Nothing, because the cotton is very, very soft. Srimati Radharani's lotus feet is way more softer than millions and millions of cotton swabs put together. So then how can it the pain be felt at her lotus feet? Also, we can say that Yoga Maya Shakti is so alert that in all pastimes of Radha and Krishna, she makes sure that there is no pain felt and there is no hindrance. So even if there are thorns, they are all completely, they seem to be hard and very sharp, but they're converted to soft beds of lotus flowers by Yoga Maya Shakti. These are all reasons, different reasons. That's all true. Lalita Sakhi looks at Krishna there, and Krishna is playing the flute. And at that time, Lalita Sakhi says, Radharani is so happy looking at the Vraja Nava Yuvraj. Vraja Nava Yuvraj means, Vraja means Vrindavan, and Nava Yuvraj means the prince of Vrindavan, or the king in waiting, he who's going to become the king very soon. That Krishna is playing the flute, and Srimati Radhika is completely stunned looking at that Krishna. This is Lalita Sakhi's point. Govardhan also is having an extra flavor in the heart of Srimati Radhika, because the pastime of Govardhan is very dear to Srimati Radharani. When the pastime of Giriraj Govardhan took place, the lifting of Govardhan. So at that time, the demigods, they all came, they offered Abhishek to Krishna, and they called him the king of Braja. Also at that time, soon after that, our Nanda Maharaj offered a special Abhishek of Krishna and said, oh, I announce him as the prince or the king in waiting for Braj. But for Srimati Radhika, Krishna is such a great king. He doesn't need any bathing from Nanda Maharaj. He doesn't need any Abhishek from the demigods. Srimati Radhika thinks that Krishna is such a great king that there's no one who can crown him except himself. So what does Krishna do? He lifts up the crown himself and places it on top of his head as Govardhan hill. The hill of Govardhan is the crown for the Brajanava Yuvraj. So there's no crown that can work for Krishna except Giriraj. And no one can lift this crown. So Krishna himself lifts it up and places it on top of his head. So when Srimati Radhika comes on top of Govardhan hill, she's stunned looking at the Brajanava Yuvraj. Lalita Sakhi is saying that, oh Sakhi, look, how wonderful is Radharani's mood, that she likes Krishna so much that the heat of the summer afternoon has completely disappeared. Externally, it seems to be very hot, but it has completely disappeared in the heart of Srimati Radharani, because the fire of separation from Krishna was way more hotter. And now meeting Krishna has soothed and calmed the fire in the heart, that the externals don't matter anymore. The feet, which would have been bruised by the sharp Suryakanta Mani, now are decorated by the bed of blue lotus flowers. So this is the love, this is the effect of prem, that whatever is a source of great distress becomes to be the source of great joy, because there is affection, there is anurag for Krishna. So here Lalita Sakhi looks at Radharani and she says that you and I know, she's talking to the Sakhi, she says, you and I know that when Krishna plays the flute, the cows who generally wander, they stop wandering. In this world, we see cows generally keep wandering. And even if they don't wander, they stand in one place. They continue to chew. But Gavascha Krishna Mukhanirigita Venu Geetam. Lalita Sakhi tells the Sakhi, when Krishna plays the flute, cows stop wandering. And those who stop wandering, they stop chewing also. And they still simply look at Krishna. So when the cows have such anurag for Krishna, is it surprising that Radharani is having so much anurag? The cows who are chewing grass, they forget what grass is. And even if they have grass in the mouth, they forget, what am I supposed to do with this grass? And in love for Krishna, even without milking the udder, there's milk which is showering down as a source of great, great joy. And the calf, which is trying to suck the udder of the mother, forgets to suck. And the milk that is in the mouth, the calf forgets to drink. And the milk is coming down its cheeks. And Lalita Sakhi tells the Sakhi that we have seen effects like this in Vrindavan, where the cows forget relation in this world. They completely get stunned looking at Krishna. So is it very astonishing that Radharani has forgotten the sun? She has forgotten the Suryakanta Mani. And most importantly, she has forgotten her friends. She has forgotten her superiors like Jatila and Kutila. And to top it all, she has forgotten herself. This is the great example of Braja, where even sources of great suffering turn so joyous that even scholars cannot understand this Braja prema. Therefore, Chaitanya Charitamrita describes Dhanyasyayam nava prema yasyon milati chetasi antarvani bhirapyasya mudra sushtu sudurgama. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells Sanatan Goswami, this prema in Braj is like a snake. The snake wants to go ahead, but it doesn't go ahead. It goes to the left and then goes to the right and then goes to the left and turns the right. So it seems to go in a zigzag manner, but it's actually going ahead. So this is prema in Vrindavan. It is so crooked that crooked situations seem to be very pleasurable. Love for Krishna is so crooked that crooked situations, apparent crooked situations, seem to be very pleasurable. So dear devotees, whether externally the situation changes or it doesn't change next year, I don't know, because I'm not a futuristic astrologer who can predict the calendar for the next year. But one thing is for sure, if we can protect our consciousness, then whatever circumstance we may be in, whether we have the Suryakanta Mani under our feet, or we are standing under the hot summer afternoon on top of Govardhan Hill, or whether we are amidst a pandemic, 2021 is still going to be a happy new year. That's the first example. Now the second example. The second example is titled The Chaotic Flames of Fiery Affection. I repeat, the chaotic flames of fiery affection. Now this seems to be very, very interesting. Let's see the second example of contrasting, counterintuitive nature of Braja Prema. We know the pastime of Kaliya. So in that context of the pastime of Kaliya, let's dig in further on the basis of the commentaries of the Acharyas. When Krishna turned about 6 years old, we understand that the pastime of Kaliya took place. The nature of love or prema is such that it causes anubhav. Anubhav means an external explosion of an internal feeling. And one of the anubhavs is dancing to express. Evam vratasva priyanama kirtya jatanu rago dhritachitta uchchai hasati roti rodati unmadavat nrityati saloka bahya. The 11th canto Srimad Bhagavatam describes when there is explosion of affection for Krishna in the heart, that externally comes out as dancing. So when Krishna was caught in the coils of Kaliya, and all the Brajbasis came, and along with the Brajbasis, the Gopis also came, and along with the Gopis, Srimati Radharani also came, and this was the first Madhuryamay meeting of Radha and Krishna. We in Braja, in the land of Braja, we can understand that everything that Krishna does is only to reciprocate to the affection of Srimati Radharani. So it's very difficult for Krishna from Nandagram to very easily meet Srimati Radharani. So therefore, he tries to do different tricks and different things by which they can meet. So sometimes he has to lift a big mountain for 7 days and 7 nights, only so that the news goes to Vrishabhanu Maharaj. Oh, Nanda Maharaj's son is stuck under a big hill. Let's take our big sticks and go and help him under the hill. So when Vrishabhanu Maharaj has to go and put a stick under the hill, he can go alone. So he will tell Kirtida Devi, oh, you also come with me. We have to lock the house. Oh, Sridama, you also come with me. Oh, Ananga Manjari, you also come. Radhika, what are you going to do at home? You also come. And then when Radharani comes, Krishna is holding the hill. And then when Srimati Radharani comes, his hand starts trembling and shaking in happiness. And Balaram is thinking, what's wrong? Do you want some of my strength? Because I'm Bala. You don't have Bala in your name. I have Bala in my name. So I can give you some of my Bala. But is that why you're weak? And Krishna's looking at Srimati Radharani and shivering and shaking in happiness. And Srimati and Mother Yashoda, in her bhav, she's looking at Krishna and she's thinking, oh, my Lala, I feed him makhan misri every day. I give him all the sweets every day, and that nourishes his biceps. But for so many days, he has missed his breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and his biceps have become weak, and now they're trembling because of weakness. So Balaram is seeing out of brotherly affection. Mother Yashoda is seeing out of motherly affection. But Krishna is glancing at Radhika with Madhuryamaya affection. Krishna as Rasaraj in Braja is managing all relations very well. So similarly here, he gets himself trapped in the coils of Kaliya, only so that he can meet Srimati Radharani. So the news spreads all over the place that the son of Nanda Maharaj is caught between the coils of the serpent. And then everyone comes there. The house becomes houseful. The Brajvasis come there. The gopis come there. And when Srimati Radharani comes there, Krishna becomes so happy because now his arrow has met the target. He being wrapped up in the coils of Kaliya, that has bear the fruit of seeing Srimati Radharani face to face. And this is the first ever meeting of Srimati Radharani with Sri Krishna. So you can see Krishna generally, he kills demons. Putana, Agasur, Bakasur, Dhenukasur, Vatsasur. Krishna kills all the demons. But this time, he saw Srimati Radharani, and one of the anubhavs of Prem is to dance. So he looked at Radharani and he started dancing. So Krishna jumped from one coil to another coil to another coil to another coil, and he continued to dance. So the demigods are getting entertained. The Brajvasis are getting entertained. But Krishna is telling himself, I am not intending to dance, but I'm so happy. I'm seeing Srimati Radharani, Vrindavaneshwari. I can't stop myself from dance. So at the end of the story, we see that Kaliya somehow got lucky. He was the one who became the medium for the meeting of Radha and Krishna. And this is why, instead of killing him, Krishna let him go. Kaliya, taking shelter of Yamuna, Sri Yamuna Maharani, got Radharani's special mercy. And therefore, he became the medium of getting Radha and Krishna together. So Krishna let Kaliya go alive. Now Krishna comes out of this pond and he comes onto the banks, and all the Brajvasis come and embrace him heart to heart, because Krishna is like born again. So they embrace him to the chest, and they're so attached to him that no one wants to go home. So they all decide, let's camp here on the banks of the Jamuna. And this is summertime, so even at night it's very, very hot. And well, the thing that initiated the whole pastime is cows getting thirsty because of the summertime, and they're going to drink the poisonous water of the Yamuna. And then the whole story began. So it's so hot even at night, and they're so tired and they're so attached to Krishna. They decide, let's just camp here and rest here on the banks of the Yamuna. So the Brajvasis continue to camp there. At that time, as we know, demons were sent by Kamsa Maharaj, and they set fire on all directions and all sides, and everything is dry. Everything is dry. So fire spreads all over very quickly, and there's panic and fear and shouting and chaos and running. All Brajvasis are running all over the place from tree to tree. And seniors like Nanda Maharaj, Upananda, Abhinanda, Sunanda, Nanda, they're all looking at each other and they're thinking, now what are we going to do? The whole of Vrindavan is here and fire is set all over the place. There's chaos. There's imminent, horrible fear of death. Or let's say there's horrible fear of imminent death. And they're all in the middle of chaos. What do you think goes through the heart of someone at that time when they're in the middle of fire? We see death, we see our end, we see there's trouble, there's no way to escape. So there's chaos all over the place. But guess what? In the middle of all that chaos, that fire, it lit up Krishna's face. Krishna standing there, bluish black complexioned, and all those fire flames around have lit up Krishna's face like never before. Everyone is running for their life. Everyone is running and screaming and yelling and shouting what's going to happen. But it is described, Srimati Radharani's face brightened, looking at how beautiful Krishna looks. Srimati Radharani was looking at Krishna's beautiful face, and she's thinking to herself, this beautiful tamal tree of Vrindavan, this dark complexion Krishna is lit up by the reddish orange flames of this fire. I don't know who has set this fire, but because of that, the flames are coming close and Krishna's face looks so beautiful. Radharani's Gurujan, all the seniors are running everywhere. They're saying, they're screaming, the forest fire is getting close. But Radharani is completely lost. She's lost looking at Krishna's face, and Krishna's lost looking at Radharani's face. Dear devotees, this is in Sanskrit, this is called Madhu Rati Krita Viparyaya Paristhiti. Very big statement, very big phrase. What it means is Madhu Rati. Madhu Rati means sweet attachment and absorption in Krishna. Madhu Rati Krita. Krita means causes. What does it cause? Viparyaya Paristhiti. It causes exact opposite circumstance. Which means if there is fire flames of distress, there is forest fire flames of horrifying pain and fear, that situation, because of absorption in Krishna, becomes the source of the greatest joy. Greatest joy. So we see in the first example that we saw Srimati Radharani was having reasons for pain and wounds and suffering, but they were the example of the soft stones under the cooling sun. And the second example we see here of how situations can be very testing and distressful, but the chaotic flames of fiery affection, which means the affection, the attachment to Krishna, can bring in the exact opposite feeling in the heart. So I don't know whether next year is going to be happy or sad externally, but if we are more absorbed in Krishna, then Madhu Rati Krita Viparyaya Paristhiti. Then that absorption in Krishna will cause the exact opposite experience in the heart. When someone is locked down in the room, they will start taking advantage of it. And they would start thinking, this is the time for me to go deeper and read and hear and chant and work on myself. When everything opens up, I will connect with other devotees and I will speak about preaching. But when I'm at home, I will try to focus on myself, and whatever is available through internet, I will try to go deeper with that source. So instead of complaining, criticizing, blaming, and having stress about what's going to happen, the person wears a bulletproof jacket in his consciousness that I don't know what's going to happen, what bullets Maya Devi is going to shoot through the gun of 2021. But one thing is for sure, where there's absorption at the lotus feet of Krishna, then the perception of that is exact opposite. The third and the final example to bolster this point, to kind of solidify this point. The title of this example is The Scary Sister-in-Law Who Loves Krishna. The scary sister-in-law who loves Krishna. So a very quick story for that. Once upon a time, a gopi who was very dear to the heart of Krishna, she was in the company of her other gopi friends, and she saw at a distance, she saw something at a distance, and that made her burst out in joy. And she called out to her Sakhi friends and said, oh, listen, dear Sakhis, oh, gopis, please listen. There's unprecedented joy in my heart, and I want to share with all of you. What is that? Asked the friends. And the Sakhi said, that Krishna who attracts our chitta, who attracts our heart with his Rupa Madhuri, Venu Madhuri, Leela Madhuri, and Prema Madhuri, the four sweet aspects of Brajendra Nandan, Dhira Lalit Nayak, Sri Krishna in Vrindavan, that Krishna who attracts everything moving and non-moving, that Krishna who stuns the heart of all living beings. He's the source of all joy. We drink sweetness and we delight in that sweetness. But what I see today is something that I have never seen before. My sister-in-law, who's extremely frightening and extremely rasa ajna, which means someone who has no clue of rasa. Now it's interesting in Braja, please don't relate that to your domestic family life, but I'm just making a general point as far as Braja is concerned. The gopis of Vrindavan, they generally don't get along with their mother-in-law and sister-in-law because the mother-in-law and the sister-in-law are always looking at them. Where is she going? Who is she looking at? Which street is she walking through? And they're always they externally try to show their care and concern, but that is the enemy of Madhuri Rasa. So they are considered to be Rasa Ajna. Ajna means foolish or illiterate. They have no clue of rasa, and they're very scary, frightening, and they're like a speed breaker for all the gopis to go and meet Shyamasundar. So here the Sakhi is saying, my sister-in-law, who is excessively scary, frightening, and extremely ignorant of Madhurya Rasa, is also feeling and feeling great ecstasy, glancing at Shyamasundar. Oh, this is so amazing. I have been waiting for this day. Yes. Now she's so attached to Krishna. She's so attracted. She's so infatuated. She's generally scary and ignorant of Madhur Rasa. But she's getting completely magnetized to Shyamasundar. This is exactly what I wanted. Now, dear devotees, let us think about it. The gopi looks at her sister-in-law as her enemy because she's always stopping her from going and meeting Krishna. And she's always spying on her, and she's the one who creates the problems for the Sakhi. So generally in this world, when the enemy, whom we don't like, gets attracted to our beloved, then it's a source of great sadness. And it causes distress to the heart, right? I'll repeat again. In general, in this world, the enemy whom we don't like, if they get attracted to our beloved, then we become a little sad, and we become, it's a source of, it's a cause of distress. But in Braja Prem, Madhu Rati Krita Viparyaya Paristiti, the Sakhi who doesn't get along with her sister-in-law, the enemy, that enemy is getting connected and ecstatically bound to Sri Krishna's arrows of glance. And what is happening? This Sakhi should actually feel sad, because in this world, when the enemy gets attracted, we feel sad. But the nature of Braja Prem is that it flips everything. the temple of Prem is such that opposites happen, counterintuitive, as we said. So that situation, which is the source of great distress, has become the source of ecstatic, unprecedented joy. So we see in this example also, thing which generally, that example or that situation, which generally would be a source of great distress and sadness, because Krishna is involved there, that has become the source of greatest joy. And the Sakhi is saying to all the other Sakhis, I've never felt so happy when we get attracted to Krishna as much as I see when she's getting attracted to Krishna. So this is the nature of Braja Prem. So we saw 3 examples today, dear devotees, in this discussion. We spoke the first example, which was entitled The Soft Stones Under the Cooling Sun, where Radharani is searching for Krishna, and she doesn't feel the hot sun and she doesn't feel the sharp stones. And the second example, we said the chaotic flames of fiery affection, where we see that generally when there's a forest fire, it creates uncertainty and fear and chaos and anxiety. But there, Radharani was completely stunned looking at Krishna, and she didn't feel any flame of fire around because of her absorption in Krishna. The third example that we covered was the scary sister-in-law who loves Krishna. Another example of a flip in emotion. So dear devotees, to conclude this talk here and the discussion here, I would like to say, I don't know what's going to happen to 2021, but definitely we can wish each other happy, blissful, Krishna conscious New Year, because irrespective of whatever happens outside, if we chase and we aspire for Braja Prem, if we aspire for Krishna Prem, then we can completely protect our consciousness, and we can perceive even distressful situations with lots of positivity. The two examples that we can incorporate in our take home is when it rains profusely outside, we can't stop the rain, but we can stop ourselves from getting wet by pulling up an umbrella. So Krishna consciousness doesn't teach us the art of changing circumstances. Krishna consciousness does not teach us the art of stopping the rainfall. But Krishna consciousness teaches us to hold up the umbrella of positive shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Hari. So irrespective of whatever happens outside, we are not touched by the rain shower. We stay dry and we don't get wet by that shower. And the second example is when we are walking on land, and if it's filled with a lot of stones, we can't pick up all those stones and sharp thorns and stones away. But by putting on shoes, what happens is we protect our feet from getting those wounds and those cuts. So Krishna consciousness is that beautiful process where even if the sharp thorns and stones remain on the floor, we are not thinking and afraid of taking the stones away. We just equip ourselves with good shoes so that we don't hurt our feet. So similarly, in 2021, whichever part of the world we are in, however our financial circumstances, however, wherever, whichever, whatever the circumstances are, we have to promise ourselves that I will make the best use of this situation. I will protect my consciousness so that I can see the invisible hand of Krishna in all circumstances. Thank you so much. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Jai Ho. Thank you so much, Amarendra Prabhu. On behalf of all the 100 connections that we have today, and actually we're saturated because somehow we are limited to 100 the way we set up. But typically, we have more. But everyone is still here, hanging on to every word, listening eagerly, and trying to saturate the last moments of 2020 with the highest nectarian katha of the most intimate and sweet nature of Vraja. And there's nothing more beautiful, nothing more satisfying to the soul, and nothing more gratifying to the heart. No matter what level of Krishna conscious advancement we're at, it is immediately relishable, immediately sweet. So thank you so much for reminding us of that, and for letting us know that, when you can't go outside, we have to go inside, and that is really what it's all about. So thank you once again, Amarendra Prabhu. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. I'll pass it on to now Nilmani Prabhu to continue the program.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Nilmani Prabhu. So Nilmani Prabhu, you need to unmute yourself, and then we can go ahead. Yeah, there you
go. Okay. Well, thank you again, Amarendra Prabhu. Amarendra Prabhu, I think he's a living example of someone who has totally capitalized on the pandemic. If anyone has really extracted value from this by totally locking himself in lockdown in Atlanta and preaching, I don't know, and giving classes, how many hours a day? Probably 6, 7, 8 hours a day on some days, maybe more, I don't know. But I think it's just an amazing service you've done through the pandemic, through so many different audiences all over the world. I'm sure, I know in India and Europe and North America and various other places. So it's an amazing service that you've done. And thank you for being with us on this last day of 2020 and sharing some very wonderful Leela, Krishna Leela. So that's very nice and amazing.
Our New Jersey community is very dear to my heart, because topics which are very, very dear to my heart have been offered at the Lotus Feet of Gaur Nitai. I remember my Guru Maharaj once told me that whenever you have chance, please speak on Rup Siksha, the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Rupa Goswami. And then I was very, very happy to serve that series at the Lotus Feet of Gaur Nitai in New Jersey. Then my Guru Maharaj said that the 6 Goswamis are very dear to the Gaudiya Vaishnavas and we should take shelter of them. So then again, I was very happy and privileged to offer that service at the Lotus Feet of Gaur Nitai in New Jersey. So this community is very, very dear to my heart. Many wonderful friends, if I could have the audacity to call, and many loving superiors like Neelamani Prabhu and Madan Gopal Prabhu. So you don't even have to thank me, Prabhu. Whenever you think and whenever you instruct, I'm there with you, and I'm very happy to serve all of you.
We're really hoping in 2021 that we can have several times your katha and classes in live in person rather than in this Zoom structure. So we look forward to scheduling some time, hopefully.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Few months to bring you to New Jersey again. So thank you. So I don't know if people are motivated to hear so much, but we did also have a plan to provide a little bit of an update on our New Jersey Parsippany New Temple project. I'm happy to do that for a while and then see what we want to do. I mean, originally we had intended to just have the program go till around 11, but we'll see if people want to stay and we can do something. But I don't know, can I share my screen?
I think Shri Gadadhar Prabhu, you have to grant access to Neelamani Prabhu, just making the host. That'll help.
Okay.
Neelamani Prabhu, if you can also go ahead and mute anyone else who's not muted. This way there'll be less